busy Hockey East weekend for the UMass Lowell Hockey Riverhawks. Friday night, a 7:30 start down at the Aganis Arena. They take on Boston University. And then make a note, Saturday it's a 6 o'clock start, and it is a Nesson broadcast. The Riverhawks out in Amherst to take on the University of Massachusetts. Joining us now, the head coach of your Riverhawks, Norm Bazan. Norm, welcome.
Pleasure to be with you, Bob.
And it is, as they all are at this point, a very important time of the year, very important weekend. I guess the goal in hockey is simply pick up points every weekend.
Yeah, very good point. I think anytime you can pick up points during a weekend, you should be satisfied that you've gotten to a hockey's opponent, and there's such great depth in our league that you're pleased to get any points.
Last weekend, a very good weekend for this team as it won back-to-back games against a very tough opponent. You got contributions from just about everybody on the roster.
Yeah, tremendous 4 points, especially when you go to Merrimack and play in that little arena. They make it hard for you, and we're ecstatic to get 4 points that weekend.
I know at times I ask you which night is tougher, first or second. Let me say, now in retrospect, is the second night just because you get beat up physically? Both teams do. But is the second night in some ways the tougher night and more a question of mental toughness than anything else?
That's a great question. I think it really depends if you're successful the first night or not. Because if you're not, you're desperate for a split, and you play a little differently, perhaps with a little bit more desperation, urgency. And it really depends on the weekend and who you're playing and who you played first.
Is a hockey season really, if you will, a battle of attrition where success or failure is often determined not by talent but by depth of your roster?
Well, it has to be a bit of both. I mean, you need some talent to survive, and more importantly, you need to stay as healthy as possible throughout a long, grueling season in order to have success. So I think it's a combination of the two. Now with 20 league games as opposed to 27, it becomes more of a sprint than a marathon as far as the league goes. So it's a bit of both. Attrition right now in the dog days of January / early February, everybody's a little banged up, and they're trying to get through some of those injuries.
And the reason I had asked the question was one of the things that impressed me last weekend was how, and I'll say extraordinarily well, I thought the freshmen played, and everybody contributed. Evan Campbell had goals in both games. Joe Gambardella had a goal Friday night. Chris Menicia had a goal on Saturday. I thought Dylan Zink played a terrific game Saturday, and I think of his pass to Menicia. And certainly Michael Kaplan just continues to play phenomenal hockey, in my view. You've got to be pleased with the way this freshman class has grown during the season.
Yeah, you bring up a valid point. We got contribution throughout our lineup. When you're talking about Menicia's goal, is a big goal at a key time. I think Campbell's goal, sealing the win, was a big goal also. Zink was headsy in more his passes and his breakouts all night long. And when you get contributions throughout your lineup, it helps your cause. And those kids have come along, and they're feeling a little bit better about themselves now that they got key minutes.
How important, and you probably remember when you were a young hockey player, how important is confidence in yourself?
Well, it's important. I think all these kids have it. They have it a little bit more when they play more minutes, and they earn those minutes. And I think they've done that throughout the course of the season. And they played at key moments throughout the season. But now they're being counted upon to play big minutes. And they're coming through very well.
As we've seen our defense corps depleted a little bit by injury, we have talked in recent weeks about how well Christian Folan's playing, the way Shane Thompson has made the step back. We've looked and spoken today a little bit about the defensemen that are freshmen, Kaplan and Zink. We don't mean to overlook Joe Hauk. He's playing terrific hockey as well.
Yeah, you bring up Joe Hauk. Certainly he's a big, strong body. And when you have that many games under your belt, college games, you can be a real asset to your club. And I think he's playing some of his best hockey. And you can throw Amlong. I think Amlong is realizing that he's a fixture and certainly a very important cog in our lineup. And he's contributed with several key plays at strong times in the game.
This team, one of its great strengths has got to be its depth. I get the feeling, whichever, in kind of the chess game that coaching is, whichever piece you put out there, you've got a lot of confidence in their ability to contribute.
Yeah, I like our depth. I have since I've gotten here. I think we've recruited kids who there's very little downside in interchangeable parts. You know, by that I mean, remember we played 3 games in 4 nights, Princeton and Penn State. We played an awful lot of guys in that trip, and they all rose to the occasion. I think it's a real credit to our strength and conditioning program and the way Devin runs these kids through. They're strong, they're ready to make an impact when they do come to the lineup.
This weekend, Boston University Friday night, the University of Massachusetts on Saturday. Both teams that we've seen earlier this year, both teams that we've been successful against, but certainly one does not assume success. It comes as the result of hard work.
Yeah, we're not worried about the results right now. We're worried about playing our type of game. And I think when you look at previous games, you can get fooled very quickly. Every team has improved since the start of the season. BU's got one of the best power plays in Hockey East. Amherst, to me, is one of the fastest teams in Hockey East. And you have to contend for some of those strengths when you're playing an opponent.
Consistency is so important. It seems to me, and early in the year, typically for any team in any sport, there's a certain amount of inconsistency because you're not, I guess, up to mid-season form. But it seems as though in recent weeks this team has found its consistency of 60 or 65 minutes of hockey, and just from start to finish, staying at a constantly high level.
Yeah, I like our compete. You know, in the game up at Providence where we lost, I think, 5-4, and we played less than a full game, I think the guys learned from that experience, and the 3 subsequent games changed it around and have played very complete hockey games so far. And now is a new challenge. The hockey games last weekend and the week before don't matter anymore. It's this weekend, and these are the most important games of the season until next weekend. And overall, it's a grind. So you gotta worry about this weekend, enjoy it, and make the most of it.
Any specific points of emphasis for this hockey team as we go into this weekend? And maybe my question is maybe more about Friday, because I realize we take it one game at a time. But any points of emphasis?
Oh, sure. I think BU's got tremendous transition, so we got to be careful of that. They've got good second wave attack. Their defensemen have led them in scoring for the bulk of the season. And they certainly throw everybody to the net, and sometimes too much so, but at the same time it's worked for them. So we got to compete with that, and we're going to have to be opportunistic on our part.
You kind of hit a reset button after Friday to prepare for Saturday?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think you have to. When you got 2 different opponents, you prepare for them just a little bit differently. You pay attention to their strengths, and you certainly tweak your game in certain facets, both on special teams. But overall, the work ethic has to be the same both nights. Our attack mode has to be the same both nights, and we have to have strong goaltending, and that's a recipe we've tried to follow here all year long.
And the last thing I'll ask, we're on the road this weekend for both games. We hear coaches often talk about a road mentality. From your point of view, is the approach different on the road than at home, and what's our approach on the road?
Yeah, it's no different than at home. We play the same on the road as we do at home, and that's probably the strength of our team, is the character relays that road play the same way as they do at home. So we don't change our game style, our style of play whatsoever. When we get on the road, we try to be as aggressive as possible.
All right, 2 on the road. I hate to be greedy, but let's grab 4 points. Norm, always a pleasure talking to you. I hope it's a terrific weekend.
My pleasure. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.